have creative ideas. I know where to meet students where they're at, because the kid of today has to be met where they're at. People learn in basically 4 different domains. There's kinesthetic, which is moving. There's audio, which is listening and hearing, right? There's visual, which is I need to see something in motion. I need to watch a video of how this works, right? And then there's this mental, scholarly domain where maybe they're more introverted or whatever. They like reading peer-reviewed articles. But like, not everybody's like that. You almost have to go to their place and pull them back to that foundational center. And that's where I came up with the meeting students where they're at. Because you have to go here and then attract them, the hook, as they say, and then boom, bring them back to where they need to be and where you want them to be. And it's no fault of the teachers. They need to also be met where they're at and connect with something that they feel comfortable doing and not having the fear of not covering the content or doing it in all areas, right? And then really making this an organic thing.
It still hits, I don't miss it. It's go, 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 like a go, go flow. And I'm almost done. And I told you so when I throw these flows like it's Rochambeau. And I ain't too close to the Joe Smo goes. And I'm on my grind, that is all the time. I do not do breaks, that's right, I stay in dry. And look, I'm back with a little bit of that, a little more cash than it came in with. Ready, that cat is out that bag, but I still ask you, the boy got skills. I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me, I got this. I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both, and even do this, word.
This episode is brought to you by Anthracite Pallet Solutions. Need reliable, durable pallets to keep your business moving? At Anthracite Pallet Solutions, we specialize in new and used 48x40 wooden pallets. Whether you're shipping, storing, or stacking, we offer high-quality pallets that keep your operations running smoothly. With our own fleet of trucks and trailers, we deliver on time, every time. And if warehouse space is a concern, our drop trailer services have you covered. From custom orders to large-scale deliveries, we're here to meet your every need with top-notch customer service and unbeatable prices. We're currently shipping within 2 hours of Scranton, Pennsylvania, including Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland. Call us today at 570-606-9206 or inquire online at anthracitepallet.com and let us handle your pallet solutions. Anthracite Pallet Solutions, built to last. Designed to move. This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All On The Stacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by FitAF. If you haven't already noticed, I live and breathe entrepreneurship. Whether it's launching new ventures, attending pitch meetings, or mentoring budding entrepreneurs, my schedule is jam-packed. And that's where FitAF steps in. Their menu changes weekly, offering a variety of chef-inspired meals designed by nutrition experts using only the best quality ingredients, keeping me fueled and focused. Their vast selection of meals has you covered for all types of dietary restrictions and diet plans, including keto, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, and more. As an On The Stacks listener, enjoy our exclusive offer. Get 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more when you use code OTS at checkout at fitafnutrition.com. Again, that's code OTS for 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more at fitafnutrition.com. Healthy meals and seamless nutrition, keeping entrepreneurs at the top of their game.
I think the other thing too that finally maybe brought us together and aligned us is the energy, right? And again, I think that energy, it's contagious, right? So I often say I love having people on this show that we have the same energy and we're on the same wavelength with things. And when you get people together like this, that's when I think you really have really good, meaningful, deep conversations that are truly genuine. And we're not just here hey Bill, so how was that drive up the turnpike today?
Right.
Because you literally did drive up the turnpike today. But,
right.
Yeah. But we're not here so a little chilly out today, but hey, spring's coming.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I wouldn't say you're right. It wasn't negative, right? I think at the time you could perceive it as negative in your own self-perception, but I was stagnate. I think in my 20s, I was teaching and I was doing a lot of things where I was going out, enjoying myself. There was a really lot of like me. And I think the true growth factor is to be able to connect the me with the why, right? Like I don't know if it's like a Japanese saying, like I'm gonna absolutely butcher it, I'm sure, but like the Aiki, I forget what it's called, but like there's a thing where you kind of connect all of the dots together, and you're not only fulfilling yourself, but you're helping fulfill your family, you're helping fulfill strangers, you're helping fulfill your career. And I think the past 10 years have been a journey for me personally to figure out what my actual path is and what I want to do, because that's been a struggle of mine since I was younger. Like, what am I meant to do? What do I really want to do? What am I good at? And what impact could I make, not only to help people, but to help my own family be financially stable? And I kind of realized right when I hit that 30 and 31 age about 10 years ago that like I was stagnate, and I needed to move into a different category, not better or whatever, but a level up, so to speak, from where I was at. So you were spot on the money with that.
Yeah. So like, so what did you go to school for? Like, what did you even start? Like, what did you think you were going to do?
So like, that's the thing, man. Like, I had no idea. I could literally remember driving home from Hoban on Pennsylvania Boulevard. And I remember, this is what I mean, man. I remember the fall of 2001. I was a senior and I got accepted into King's College. And, you know, I got to give a lot of credit to my father, because I think my father had a lot of insight beyond what I even understood as a person at that time. And he wanted to be a teacher. And he's very good at educating and providing and connecting all the pieces. He was a great basketball coach. He was a boys varsity basketball official for 30 years. And my mom brought the personality to the table. Hard work ethic, personality, have fun. And my dad has that too. But like, he has the vision. And kind of just was like, hey, Bill, you're really, really good at math. You're really, really good with kids. Every time you're working at the CYC, refereeing little kids games, they come up to you, they enjoy you. You know what I mean? When I was 14, 15, 16, he's like, I'm going to put down that you're going to go into mathematics education. You're going to get a bachelor's in math, and you're going to do a secondary major in secondary ed. And I was like, sure. You know, like I had no idea what I wanted to do. Right. And there were even opportunities that I could have been a real estate agent at 18 from my cousin, who he works for a local bank. He's president of a local bank. And like his buddy at the time was a broker and like asked me to do it. So there's even been even been like little dewdrops.
But it's like, again, timing wasn't right.
Correct.
That's like it was probably meant to be, but just not at that time.
100%, because I would have been absolutely at 18, dude, there would have been no way that I would have been focused enough to do any of that. Yeah. So that's what I went to school for. And it worked out beautifully, because I not only had my bachelor's in math, so I could have gotten a corporate job or a business job, but I had the backup doing the education. And what was funny is during my student teaching experience, I had been gone away from the Catholic Youth Center at that time, working, volunteering with local kids in the community and stuff, and in working, getting paid, doing the book for games and the clock for basketball games. And it was just so wild, because I'm teaching a kid who was connected to who ran basically the CYC at that time. So then I ended up closing the building 2 nights a week. Then I ended up being their summer school camp director. So like, I got a job teaching, then I started doing that. There were always these gaps that I've been very grateful and blessed from, God or whoever, Earth Creator, whatever you want to believe in, that really like kept me going and didn't let me stagnate too much. So I've always been provided opportunity, and I could go on and on about what happened after the point, but that was basically the kickstart of where I am now.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. Like I said, I think it's all part of the journey, and I often too say, like, maybe sometimes not you have to go down the wrong path, but I'll just give you an example. So Dave Wychock, when he was in recording some content for his show just a few days ago, and he was recording this one little clip, and he was saying, and it first started with saying something like, everyone says don't chase the money. And he goes, and I'm saying chase the money. And I'm thinking to myself, like, as he's saying this, I'm like, he's wrong. Like, I'm right. And he goes, no. He goes, but just hear me out. Like, he's like, sometimes you have to chase the money to find out that that's not actually the thing that you really like or the thing that you really want to do. And then because you did that, and then you actually found your passion. Like they, basically said, like, everyone says, oh, chase your, go after your passion, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes you can't, you may not discover your passion until like you chase the money, which was like maybe the wrong thing to do, but he's saying to do it because then that ultimately ends up leading to you to what you might actually discover that you might actually like. And then boom, the rest is history.
The theme of this, man, I'm telling you, that energy and etherical connection, like the fact that you even just said the phrase chase the money. I just had a conversation with my wife about this several months ago, maybe even been sooner than that, where she used that exact phrase. And sometimes you go to do something, right? And you do chase the money a little bit. And there's not even a negative in that, because at the time,
Sure, yeah.
maybe it helps your family.
And at the time, maybe you thought that that's what you wanted to do, and you enjoyed it. And there probably were parts that you did enjoy.
Correct. But through that, I figured out, okay, the only thing that this is helping me for right now is for my family. Because it's helping, if my wife had to like take a little break from work to help my son who has the epilepsy, things like that, like those things were meant to be. And okay, I got to do the job to help my family. But through that, you get even more motivation to ascend higher. Like one of my dreams, or things that I know that I would be good at if I were to stay in the educational role, like traditionally, would be central administration, because I have creative ideas. I know where to meet students where they're at. That's like my favorite phrase that I use, is meeting them where they're at, because the kid of today has to be met where they're at. I think the kid, me, back in the day,
yes.
Bishop Hoban.
Yeah, you're serving the younger version of
correct,
you.
100%, because I was a visual learner, and I'll get into that.
I feel like we're like the same, dude. Everything you're saying, like I could literally piggyback and repeat everything you're saying, because like I feel like I'm the same exact way. So I'm really intrigued by this. And go ahead, I'm going to ask you some more on this, because it's kids, fascinating.
People, I shouldn't even say kids. People learn in basically 4 different domains. There's kinesthetic, which is moving, right? There's audio, which is listening and hearing, right? There's visual, which is I need to see something in motion. I need to watch a video of how this works, right? And then there's this mental scholarly domain where maybe they're more introverted or whatever. They like reading peer-reviewed articles. They like doing the pockets and doing the black and white, right? But like, not everybody's like that. And I remember struggling, even in my own subject of math, not seeing things visual. I can tell you, I remember at King's College, I had a great professor. I think she's still there. I'm not sure. Her name was Dr. Kincannon. She taught physics, man, not even math. But like, I remember taking physics 1 and I was like, I'm starting to understand calculus better. And I didn't quite get there. And then all of a sudden, when I took physics 2 in the second semester, I was second in the class. I remember I was second in the class to a guy I worked with at Sears who sold shoes. His name was Tim. Wow. He was a great guy. But I remember I was so proud of myself by getting that high of a grade, because as soon as then I took the harder courses like, imaginary math and linear algebra and abstract algebra and real analysis, it clicked. I had to put work into those courses because I wasn't perfect, right? Mm-hmm. But it clicked. So like, teachers today need to truly look at that. And the problem is, teachers teach how they were taught. I remember I started at Myers, man. I was teaching a 7th grade class. It was a 3rd Hispanic, a 3rd African American, a 3rd white. And here I am teaching one of the nuns I had at Hoban my freshman year in Algebra 1, and I'm having stuff on the board, and I turned around and I looked at the class and I was like, this is going to be a long 35 years and I'm not going to make it, and I'm not doing right by these kids. So I did a self-inventory of the kids. At the time, there was this thing called English Book. It was just something that somebody created that I found online. I photoshopped it because I was pretty good at Photoshop, and I called it Math Book. Kids were able to draw their own avatar. They had pointed questions. I like when teachers do this. I don't like when teachers do that. I learn best from teachers who do this. Do you have a computer at home? Do you have a cell phone? Because in 2006, that wasn't as prevalent as it is today, right? But I took that information, and now instead of John has 39 watermelons going to market that nobody cares about, man, now I'm like, oh, hey, Joanne Jalise has her La Quinceañera coming up, and she needs masa from Juanita's mom, and then John's dad drives delivery truck, and I'm using the kids' first names in these problems. All of a sudden, heads go down to up, and they're like, this guy's using the information that I use that's not too personal, but personal enough that I could relate to this. And then you have them. And what's funny is I had a Ukrainian population when I was at Solomon Plains Junior High, which was a 7th and 8th grade center, right? And I remember this one guy came up to me. His name was Daniel, a great kid, man. And I remember he came up to me and he's like, Mr. O, when do you use tomato family. My family was tomato family when I moved here because that's what they did. They had
very
the
good.
village.
That was a very good.
Thank you.
I
practiced it. Before
I
came
thought I
on
heard
here.
you warming up before you walked in.
But like that's the thing is now I was getting kids engaged because they saw the other kids and they talk at lunch. People talk. So like that's what I mean about meeting them where they're at. It was just a small example of what you can do beyond that kind of stationary learning, which I can give you some more stories about more recently that have worked.
Yeah, I do want to hear some. I mean, like that is just, I mean, it's unbelievable, because again, like I've had some other educators, on the show here before as well, and I'm always fascinated by these conversations because, I'll say, like, I mean, you're obviously still in the schooling world, but like we've been out of school for so long, and for me, like I'm so far removed from the the education world. I'll say, at least as of now, I have 2 kids. They're going to start growing up, so I'll be getting more involved and know like what's going on nowadays, right? But it's just crazy to like think back at like again like how, just as you said, like how you were taught, and like again like I'm not gonna call any teachers out like that may have taught not the way that I would have liked or whatever, or just whatever I didn't like. There was a lot that I didn't like, but a lot that didn't like me though either. So it's fair, okay. But I think it's so important because I think the old school way, like there was no other way,
right? Like
the old school way didn't matter. Now again, we went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school for like half my life. You went your whole life, right? But like it doesn't matter whether it was Catholic school, or public school, whatever. Like it pretty much back then, most teaching was probably the same. If I had to guess, now I'm sure some teachers probably listening right now is probably cursing up and down and wants to jump through and strangle me, and that's okay.
And those were and not to interrupt you, those were the outliers. So anybody that's getting offended at that, don't get offended because you were doing the right thing back then when it should have been done.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So like I feel like there was probably like a rare breed of teachers, which is probably why I only got along with a few. And the few that I got along with, guess what happened in that class? I excelled. And when I say I got along with, I mean like they got me, I got them. And there was just this connection where like they knew how I learned, just like how you said before. I forget, you said you meet kids where they are.
Correct.
Right. And you have to. And
the beauty of it is when you get in an administrative position, you have to do the same for the teachers because they're the ones with that byproduct coming off of that still, right?
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
And I remember, at a previous school district that I was at, not the one that I'm currently at, because I've only been there for several months, but I remember this teacher, very good personality. She had that microphone that makes different noises and can lower your voice or play music through the Bluetooth, like just several years ago. Yeah. And she was like, Bill, I really want these kids to learn math. Like some of the athletes in the class, the soccer players, like they're not getting it. And some of the other kids aren't getting it. And I said, all right, Jess. And I had to think about this. And I'm like, she likes to dance. Right. And I'm like, all right, how could I use that in her classroom and also to get some other kids going on? Because arguably she may have been a cereal packet giver because that's what she knew how to do. It was no fault to her own.
Sure.
Right. But that was something that she was good at and knew what to do with. But you had to bring out the personality. So long story short, that's where that different way of learning came in that I brought to the table. And I said, all right, Jess, I looked at the students in your class. You like to dance. I said, how about this? Because they were using Google Classroom. Very easy in some way. It takes a little work, right? But very easy to put things there. I said, a third of your class are introverts and like scholarly articles. Give them the packet. Give them something good to read about the subject. Put it in Google Classroom. It'll be there. And then pair them all up together in a group. Then the next ones were the visual learners. Go to Khan Academy. Here, I found 5 videos that are interactive. Here's a couple funny other YouTube accounts that you could watch. All you got to do is link it, embed it into your Google Classroom. Boom. They could watch those videos, and then they could work on the foundational packet that you gave them, and then they'll understand it a little bit more, right? And then for the athletes, you need to get them up and get them moving, because kids do have to get up and walk around, especially today. You got to get that energy out.
Is that why I used to get up from my seat so much?
100%.
Besides the ADHD,
but that's what I'm saying, though. Even back then, like to sit in a place for that long, you can't. So all of a sudden, she calls me in and she's like, can you do a walkthrough on me? And if a teacher ever asks me to do that, I do it because I know that they've prepared and they want to feel good about something that they've done.
So this means like she's like implementing, like, so she's proud of the fact that, hey, I took what, and now obviously, like, I don't want to say like you're her direct boss. I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Advisor of the department,
but
sure.
Like, but close enough, right? Mm-hmm. And so she's proud that she took what you gave her, the constructive criticism, whatever you want to call it. She took what you gave her, she implemented it, and she probably sees that it's working and she's proud of it and she wants you to see like, hey, like I did this and she's probably grateful, for the whole thing. And I'll let you finish the story.
No, that's fine. 100%. You know what I mean? And so what happened is I come in the class, I see the introverted kids in the corner, the scholarly type kids, right? I see the visual kids who are also scholarly, right? But I'm just trying to break it down for people to understand it in terms. And then all of a sudden I see these lines painted on the floor. And now I don't know if you'll remember this, but it's 2 parallel lines and a transversal, right? Okay,
Yes.
so corresponding angles, all that fun stuff for people that like math. And then all of a sudden I look on the board and I see, she hits play. All of a sudden, corresponding angle comes down and shows what it is. And Beyonce's playing, right? And the kids are standing up at their spot and they're moving their feet to where it should be. In alternate interior angles, they move their feet. And now it's become a dance routine. So not only did she connect what she likes, she connected movement for those kinesthetic kids. And wouldn't you know it, 2 of those soccer players came up to me 2 days later and they're like, Mr. O, yo, guess what, man? And I'm like, yo, what's going on? And they're like, got 100 on that math quiz. And these were kids who were low 70s. You know what I mean? Who like,
that would have been me. That was me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And all of a sudden there's a little pride. It's not bad to have a little pride of working hard to something, right? And I'm like, I went up to her and I was like, Jess, do you know that these kids came to me and said that they were proud that they got the 100? And now we're talking about corny, motivational, but you need it, true stuff for your job, because who doesn't want to be happy with what they do for their job, right? And then boom. There it was. And I was like, man, I'm like, you feel proud because you were able to meet not only the teacher where they were at, they were able to take that philosophy and do it for the students in their class.
Yeah, dude, that's so impressive, man. Like, I give you a lot of credit, dude. I mean, it's obviously it's never a job I could do, and I always just I'm always very impressed with people who really know what the hell they're doing with what they're doing. Because I mean, even the way you explained all of that to me. Now, again, I'm not an educator. I'm like what I would call like a doer, right? Like I want to say like I'm bad at teaching, but I'm probably bad at teaching. Like, I mean, I'm sure if somebody like observed me and watched me, they can learn from what I'm doing. But like, again, like I just go do and I fail and I figure things out by trial and error. But like for you to, the process of the way that your brain works and how you've been able to figure all this stuff out and be able to teach the teachers to teach the kids, like it's really impressive, man. Because and I say that from a bunch of different standpoints, but like the world now, especially nowadays, the world needs more educators like you in the system because you get it. Well, like you actually get it.
I appreciate it. And like I was always, and we talked about this prior to the pod starting, but like people wouldn't realize it. I think most people probably think I was confident, maybe borderline arrogant, if not arrogant, with how my personality was. But that was my defense mechanism for a lot of anxiety and depression that I had earlier, not believing in myself. Like, and so that would come out in a more robust, maybe angry way, right? But like, you brought up a point about doing and failing. It was the same process for me as a teacher. Like I remember teaching equations of line of best fit at Myers, advanced 7th graders. I was failing them because I was teaching the content first and they had nothing to connect it to. And then I remembered, my boss at the time, a great guy who was my mathematics coordinator over at Myers. I think he went back into the classroom now, which is way better for those kids over there, okay? But I remember he inspired me and he was like, Bill, here's a project called Bungee Barbie. And I want you to look at this project and I want you to implement it in the class. And what it was is it's a ruler with, a rubber band and paper clips. And basically the number of feet is X and the number of paper clips are Y. And so I would measure it out in the class, 1 feet to 8 feet. And then we'd use a stairwell where it's 20 feet. And the iPhones came out, we could do slow-mo. And basically Barbie's hair, which is about 4.5 inches, has to touch. But Barbie's head can't touch because if Barbie's head touches in a bungee, Barbie's dead. So like what was great though is I told him, I said, hey, I'm going to do the project first. It was always last. I'm going to do the visual and the fun stuff first because as a math teacher, you're so concerned about covering your curriculum. You got to cover it. You got to make sure all the kids learn it. Like you got to do it. It's just a nomenclature. And wouldn't you know it, man? I did the project first. The amount of time it took me to teach the lesson was less. Every single year after. And the reason was because they were like, oh, that's when we dropped Barbie from 2 feet. Oh, they knew what the X was. They knew what the Y was in the equation of the line. And then they were able to do predictions about business, right? They'd have a business class 2 or 3 years later. And they were like, Mr. O, I was able to predict PlayStation sales. And I was able to predict this and that because they had a visual connection and something fun that they did at 12 and 13 to connect it to.
Yeah.
And that's what...
And they remember it.
That's the point is it's impactful. And teachers, and it's no blame at all, because you do need foundational lecture. Like, you do need a foundation, because if you can't just have the fun of the roof that protects everything and lets you have the party without having a foundation, or else there's nothing there. But you almost have to go to their place and pull them back to that foundational center. And that's where I came up with the meeting students where they're at. Because you have to go here and then attract them, the hook, as they say, and then boom, bring them back to where they need to be and where you want them to be.
Yeah, and I think probably maybe the reason that a lot of teachers may not go as far as you have and you do and you're going to continue to do is probably because it's actually more work. And I think for them, it's easy. And again, I'm not saying teaching is easy, but I'm saying I'll say it's easy just to get up there and do what you've always done and do it the way that you know it and do it the way that, you were taught. But you got to realize, just as you said, like that's not the way that everyone learns. I mean, especially nowadays. I mean, obviously it's always been like this, but we never really kind of had these conversations, I feel like, up until I'll say, I don't know, somewhat recent. When I say recent, in the last several years or more.
Correct.
But it's education and the system, a lot has changed over the years. But yeah, man, I think, again, I'm not, maybe I am calling teachers lazy, whatever. But people just don't want that. Maybe they don't want to put in the extra work, or I don't know. I don't know what it is.
So it's a little bit, I've learned even in the administrative role, dealing with investigations, discipline. Life is truly the onion. You'll hear a story from two different perspectives. You'll start to peel that onion back on the left and the right. And you get to the core of it. And you're like, well, it was a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So to your point, on the surface, and maybe in some cases, it is really lazy. But to your other point, there were no conversations about this. Teachers weren't told this, and they know what they rely on. They teach how they were taught. I think personally, in my personal and professional opinion about this, if you have a 30 to 35 year teaching career, you need to adapt your teaching style, especially with the changes that are happening and coming every 12 to 15 years. You need to do it probably 2 to 3 times in your career.
So you kind of sort of have to reinvent yourself and the way that you teach, every decade.
100%.
Maybe even less. I mean, especially with with how rapid technology is changing, and who knows what. I mean, you can touch on a little bit, as much as you want to, is with all the changes going on in the world, and again, I don't know, because I'm so far out of the loop of a lot of this stuff, but a lot of the Department of Education, all that,
So and that's what I'm trying to say is and that's a good segue to this point is I don't necessarily agree with cell phones in doing it, because I see the kind of damage that happens on an anecdotal basis every day, even with just different things that happen. But it's here. So you have to learn how to deal with it in order to go with it. And the Department of Ed stuff, I don't necessarily agree with getting rid of it, because I've always looked at it this way. If things are there and things are created, make it the best it can be. Don't just threaten to remove it. Don't just threaten this. Let's enhance it. And how could we enhance it? And it doesn't seem like those conversations are happening. How could you actually use a system to work for what you need it to?
Right. It's already put in place.
It's already put in place. Okay, America's not doing well. It's gone down. It doesn't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
It means let's actually put some checks and balances in place to make it better. For example, with teaching, the system was in place. The curriculum was in place. I didn't get to decide it. I didn't pick it until I started working on curriculum over the summers once I was there. But how do you work within the system to make it work for the kids? And that's what I did. And people don't want to take that chance because they either didn't have a professional development about it, they weren't educated about it, or there's a natural fear about it. And then comes that laziness, the security, right? For, maybe laziness isn't the right word, but
let's say complacency.
Complacency, which can produce that, right?
Yeah.
And it's no fault of the teachers. They need to also be met where they're at and connect with something that they feel comfortable doing, and not having the fear of not covering the content or doing it in all areas, right? And then really making this an organic thing, because the cell phones are here. Even if you outlaw them, they have them at night. And you can't tell a parent how to parent, because your family is your family, right?
Yeah.
So you have to work with it. And that's why I gave that example back with the bungee Barbie. I was like, hey guys, I'm going to let you have your phones today. Who has an iPhone? Who has an Android that has the slow-mo capability? And 6 or 7 have it. I go, okay, you guys are all now in different groups. You're the team leader. You're the recorder. Mm-hmm. You're going to sit down and you're going to record the slow-mo of Barbie's hair, and we're going to project it and watch it on the board.
This is wild. I love this. But that's makes me, I want to go back to school.
I was bored. I told you, I turned around and I looked at those kids and I was like, there's a change happening and I am not prepared for this change. How do I prepare for this change? And it was talking to other professors that I had, talking to people that inspired me about what to do. And a lot of times it's just putting that foot forward and taking that chance, right? And failing, but knowing that even if you fail with a lesson that you really try to get the kids to learn, some of the kids are going to learn it, and then that's going to transgress to the others in the classroom.
Yeah, dude, it's so fascinating. And like I said, I mean, I'm just highly impressed. I know I feel like I'm repeating myself 5 times here, but just the way that you're able to, again, I think, well, it's why you do what you do, right? You know, but it's, I mean, you're clearly really good at what you do, and you also have a really nice beard. So I mean,
but so do you. That's what I
mean. No, like it is. It's just you really need to. You just need to understand people.
That's what it is.
People. And I think too, it also goes to show, and I think this is a perfect example too of leadership. Because if you don't have the right leaders in place, they're not going to be able to empower in your case, the teachers.
Dude, 100%. And like, you cannot do this alone. Like, people think that they can just come up with the idea. You have to search out. And sometimes you're blessed being given an opportunity to meet a person. As I said, that math supervisor, he was in my life at that specific time, at that moment, to help me, right? And then moving into the Lehigh Valley was something that, like, it's not necessarily something that I thought of. I never thought I would have left Northeast PA. After 33 years, I was like, this is my home. This is where I'm going. My wife had a job at a major, LVHN down there. And it was like, man, why is this happening? Why did she get this opportunity? Well, 2020, as a PA, physician assistant, she gets the 2020 provider of the year, beat out every doctor, every nurse practitioner, every other PA in her field.
Wow, so that's awesome.
It was great, man.
Wow.
And she's worked hard. Like, she's
Good
that.
for her.
But like, it was like, okay, we did the right thing. And then I remember her, because she's just such a gracious soul. She was like, it's time for you. And I was like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, now I have to start going in here and doing this. And it was just one of those things where I've now changed that group of who I went with. I was lucky enough to meet some superintendents when I was going for that principal certification. That one was a former superintendent at Dallas. One was a superintendent down at the current district that I work at now, and would drive up to Kingston at the LIU or at the IU to like teach the classes. And then when I moved to Lehigh Valley, like, there's that instant connection again. And now I have like true men who have worked on their craft, or just individuals that have worked on their craft, who have that leadership capability to educate me and do things. And dude, and when I didn't get any jobs down there, because that felt like a failure to me, but people didn't know me, right? They didn't know what I brought to the table.
Yeah.
I went to them. I remember there was a big snowstorm right in the beginning of 2021. This man and another man, who were both superintendents, one was the predecessor of the other, did 2 or 3 Zooms with me. They brought me up to speed on that, response to intervention was now called multi-tier system of supports, MTSS. What does that mean? What does that look like, Bill? How could you add to that? They brought up all these things that when I started to go on more interviews, I now knew what I was talking about, because I did put in the research time. I did put in the time behind the scenes. And then I was able to, get a director of instruction job for grades 6 to 12 at a charter school right next to the Iron Pigs building. Got free tickets, by the way, which
nice.
is amazing.
Yeah.
And I really cut my teeth there. So like, if you're ever fearful, you have to know and look around at the people that could kind of have given you more information, and you need to use them, because if you try to do it on your own, you're probably gonna continually struggle. Some people out there may succeed, and I give them the best credit in the world, and we need those people. But for me, I needed the belief system reinstilled back into me, with the foundation of understanding what to do in order to kind of build the rest of the house.
Yeah. Why are you so passionate about this? I mean, obviously, I could, you could tell, people could see it, they can hear it. Like,
society needs this. Like, if, we used to do a student faculty basketball game in Wilkes-Barre area, right? At Myers, I did it, but it was just the Myers faculty. And then, when I moved to Solomon, it became a district thing, which was awesome. It was like every school got people together, teachers, it was co-ed, playing against the kids, or then it became playing against each other, right? So one of my last years at Solomon, I remember my dad, as a basketball official, right? He came to see me play. And I remember after the game was over, I had dude, and I didn't think of this. I'm 20 some, I'm looking to go out later, or I'm looking to hang out with my friends and get something to eat. And my dad came up to me, he goes, do you know what happened after that game? And I'm like, no, what? Was there a fight? Did something happen? What went on? And he's like, nah, Bill. He's like, you had 50 7th graders standing around you, all talking to you about how you played, what you did. He's like, I don't know if they came to see you or they were just there for the event. He goes, but you impact people at an influential age to give them hope and promise. And to connect that piece, what's interesting right now with Facebook, the good book or the bad book, whatever, right? Like,
Is that what they call it nowadays?
I don't know. There's all different names,
Yeah.
right? But again, you could...
Street names.
Yeah, you could use things for the right reasons,
Sure.
right? So when I first started teaching, you're 22. You have 7th graders who are 12 or 13. So that's about a 9 to 10 year difference. Well, now, dude, at 41, those kids are 31. I'm getting Facebook requests from kids that I taught at Myers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do I accept these? Because like, are they going to tell me they hate me? Or are they going to find out personal things about me? And then I realized it's an overwhelming positive response. I realized that even if I was a little bit more difficult or harder on them, they knew that I coupled that with a care and concern and a passion. And as I told you, when I was younger, I didn't realize what my superpower was because of my anxiety and my maybe depression that came from that anxiety. But now I know I connect with people. I'm a people person. I could sit in a meeting with C-suite level individuals, right? CEOs of businesses and charter schools, because I have. And I can take the information that they're disseminating to me, and I can give it to people who have never lived or walked a day in that type of life to know what they need to do. And then vice versa. CEOs who have been so far removed from the grind, I could bring them back down to the point and say, hey, like, you're missing a couple of pieces here, and we could authentically do it where it doesn't hurt the bottom line, it doesn't hurt anything about the business, and let's try to come to a collaborative solution. And in a current role of assistant principal, that's really what you're doing as well in resolving conflict between students, between parent and teacher, between teacher and teacher. Pick the pairing. You're really reading and listening to both sides. And then what you do with those both sides is you discern the information, you find the thread, there's always a thread. You find the thread that highlights right through the middle, and you bring everybody to that thread. And then when you do that, then the inhibitions, the walls drop, and then the conversation can start to happen more authentically. And then people start to work together. So that's what we're missing in society today. The community, the cultural aspect, the bringing of people together in a way, because everything's gone digital. Everybody's kind of moved out of that realm. Like, how many people are really walking down the street and hanging out with their neighbors? They are, but like in the way you and I grew up with. So how could we bring that back in a way? Because everybody looks to the school, man. There are situations in the jobs that I've had in schools, the community still thinks the school can do something about it, like back in the day when the principal lived there and worked there, and you saw him either at church or a community event or an outing, something of the nature. Whereas that connection's not there anymore. But people will still come to me with things that really should have police involvement, and they want you to solve that problem. So you have to get creative about it. Now, if things need to go to that level, you send them to that level, right?
Yeah.
Of
Pass
course.
the baton.
Pass the baton. But like, if you can work within it, and if it does affect the instructional environment of the school day, you have an obligation to fix that problem and come to an end that is good, a win-win in the business world. And I just always valued on staying educated in multiple areas, because I feel if you stay educated on multiple areas, you're able to help with multiple things. Like, I remember when I was younger, the last thing I'll say on it is, you hear jack of all trades, master of none, right? And it's kind of like a shot at you, right? In a way.
Yeah.
But then I learned that there's a fuller saying to that. And it's jack of all trades, master of none is still always better than a master of one. And you're like, all right, like, okay. Like,
Yeah, nobody ever really finishes that, by the way.
They never do. And
Yeah.
like, if you do finish it, and I just heard that, I think within the past 6-7 years, and I'm like,
Same, yeah.
I'm like, all right.
Okay, it's not so bad.
Let's go. I am
Yeah.
doing the right thing here.
Yep.
But people are always impressed when they talk about something anecdotally that they know. And then you can speak to even a little bit of that. And my dad always told me about this. If you could speak a little bit to it, they open their arms, bring you into the circle, and now you're a part of the real conversation. And like, even the safety piece, like I have an Act 55. Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. It's a big mouthful, PCCD. I'm a train the trainer. So I'm certified. I can go to school districts if they don't have the personnel and, you know, or charter schools, whatever. And I haven't done this, but like I have the capability to do it. I was that security director at my previous district. Like when I meet other people from law enforcement and safety, when I start using some of the lingo or the patterns or what we need to do to secure a building for kids, they're like, this guy knows what he's talking about. At my previous job, I had a state policeman who wanted to now create basically a manila folder or a packet that would have this information that we could hand to the state police in an emergency so they would know different things of the building, layout of the building, where this is. And as this guy is, the state trooper is trying to educate the superintendent and other people about this at my previous district, I'm like, raising my hand and talking about it. And I remember that trooper saying, he's like, you got to keep this guy. Like this guy's a good guy. And
You're a wizard. You're a wizard.
That was a compliment.
You're basically a wizard.
Well, here's the funny part is my cousin, who I'm going to meet after this, because he lives out in Dallas, like, you know, we love wizardry. We love the long beards. We love the pointy hat. And like my son,
I forgot my hat. I know. I got my other hat. I mean, so we both did. Yeah.
My son is now. He has this beard from Halloween, and he has this witch's hat that he walks around with. I send it to my cousin all the time because I'm like, dude, I have a little mini wizard running around. But like, it is true, man. Like, life's a soup. If you don't stir the cauldron, that fat just stays on the top. And if you're not stirring and scooping that fat off, like, you're never going to learn. And you have to be dynamic. Dave Wychock gave me this saying that I'll say to you that I loved: dare to be different. And I put it in my profile. Like, you can look at that now. It's simple, profound. Dare to be different. And I was always different, but I let people's opinions of me cloud my confidence. And now that I've tried to elevate, it's just not there anymore. Like, I'm like, I deserve this because I've worked hard for this, and I try to be good for people because I think in my soul that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, dude, I could feel it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. I'm happy for you, man. Like, that's,
Thanks.
I mean, it's amazing, and you could really, you know, your authenticity and everything. Like, it really, you know, when you talk about all this stuff, I mean, it really does, like, you know, your personality, everything comes through. And like, I mean, it's great, man, because, you know what, there's a lot of people, I'd say probably way more people, you know, percentage wise, it's probably way higher, you know, in a bad way, of people that don't have the confidence, or don't feel like they can be themselves, or feel like they can't be different because they're gonna, you know, get made fun of or torn down, or like, you know, whatever it is. But man, like, you just took that on head on, and like, you're just out there doing it, man. And like, you know, you're not afraid of the criticism, good or bad, and you're doing it, and you know, you're doing good things.
I appreciate that. I hate the criticisms. Yeah. It's like, because it almost brings you back to that place when you were younger where you didn't want to have it. But like, I realized and we said this prior, like, if you don't take the step forward, you're never going to know. And I've always been a curious person. Like, you know, and people will admit this, like, you know what you get with me. Even in my 20s, when I was a little bit more brash, I said a little bit more of what I was thinking, and it may have been a little bit more negative, right? Mm-hmm. Or a negative connotation. Like, everybody always knew, though, like, you know, and I'm not, this is the only time on this pod I'm going to use my nickname, like, third personally, but like, if you met Billy O, like, you were going to know what you were going to get. I was on the surface. You knew it was authentic. I was always the same way, right? To even a point where, like, I'm generally bubbly, right? Like, happy, like, whatever. If I ever have a bad day, like, that's something that would affect me. People would be like, what's wrong? Did I do something?
Yeah,
and
like,
I'm
they
like,
would know.
I'm like, let me have a bad day. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
It was a compliment, though. As I got older, I was like, that's a compliment, because people expect me to be a certain way. And like, I used to buck that leadership. Mm-hmm. I would be like, I don't want that. Like, let me have the bad day. Let me be this. Let me experience this. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Once I made the move down here and I saw all the failure trying to get the jobs, I was like, I need to model this. I could model and I could uplift people. And it is strenuous. It does take a toll on you, right? But like, if you know that the positives come through that modeling, do it. Like, don't be afraid to do it. Like, that's my message for the camera, is like, don't be afraid to take that step with support. Because if you do it, and you know that at least there's people in your corner that'll listen to you and hear you out and be there for you, like those superintendents were, and like other people, like my coordinator and many other people in my life, people at the CYC, executive directors, like, if they believe in you, they see something in you. And I noticed like anymore as I get older, it's not even a matter what job you do. People want to know you. And they want to see the best positive version of you. Because if they see that positive version of you and it's consistent and you model it, they know what to expect every time and they can rely on you. And then you could be the person that people can rely on and help support and uplift. And that's what it's all about.
You need a podcast.
I don't even know like how to even like, I talk a lot, right? As these viewers are going to be able to tell, but like,
No, but it's great, man.
like, I don't know, like if I started one on my own, like if I could just talk by myself. Like I always felt like I would need, as we joked around, like Jamie in the background, or you know, like I know in YMH on the comedy ones, like they have Nadav in the background belly laughing, like like I'm always. I don't know if I could do it on myself, but then that's a little anxious piece that I may have to get over.
Yeah,
again. So
there's a little bit of the imposter syndrome, right? Like,
correct.
That's those are the voices creeping in that are the people that are chirping that might have been from your past. As to, oh, you're not good enough for that. You can't do that.
And I want to tell people like it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Like
no matter what.
And that's the key, that if you're on this journey as well in whatever you're doing to arc higher and higher and higher, those voices come in all the time. And you have to battle them. You have to tell them no. And as I hit 40, now 41, I'm like, nah, like, okay, you've had your month with my brain. Like, now it's done. Like, no, like I'm ready to put that aside and I'm ready to step on. So maybe this conversation will help me illuminate to that, and I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious too. I mean, kind of going, and not changing gears, but it's a little bit about what you said about like, like the safety in schools. Like I'm curious, like, with, I hear a lot of crazy shit going on nowadays, with schools and violence and all that.
Right.
It's just like, I'm just curious, like what you're seeing, good, bad, indifferent, like whatever.
So I've been lucky enough to be a part of a lot of different environments. Rural public, right? Urban charter, urban public, right? Suburban public, suburban charter, right? Bishop Hoban I actually student taught at, and that became a teaching profession for me for several months after. Thanks again to a wonderful man who is the dean of religious formation there, who he's not alive anymore, but I always am owed a lot to that man. And like the thing is it's about opportunity. And it's about resources. So there is that equity piece that I believe can be misconstrued to get people to fight against each other about what that really means. But the true amount of equity is, how are we able to provide resources and opportunities to the needs of that specific area? Like I remember when I was at the charter school in Allentown, there was this director of student services. His name was Jamal. He would talk to me about it. And he was like, Bill, I just want to give you an example since you're the director of instruction of like how to help some of the kids. And he's like, these kids take a test and the word cupboard is in on the test. He goes, these kids don't know what a cupboard is. You and I do, because back in the day, we're 40. Like, we know what that is. And he's like,
yeah.
But he goes, even if they use the word garage attached to a home, these kids know a garage in the urban environment as a 4-story structure that houses hundreds of cars and thousands of cars. And like just those little nuances on how even standardized tests aren't equitable for the areas of where they're at. And like, how could we really bring together those things? So with the safety piece, it's very interesting because safety has to be the same everywhere. Right?
Yeah.
It's just what opportunities are provided to what kids at what areas and how much safety do you need? So at my previous district as that director of safety, it was always a great thing because like when I first started teaching, I got to work at the Catholic Youth Center in a business world, but with kids and doing things. And like that provided me an extra pedestal to showcase that I could manage people. I was the summer camp director. I had people in charge of kids that were older than me. And here I am telling them what to do older than me.
Yeah,
right. And they're like, who's this?
Yeah. Who's this young? Who's this kid?
Right. So you had to be tactful. You had to know how to talk to them. You had to know how to meet them to show them that you were there to support them. Mm-hmm. So like in the safety world, we kind of realized that like, one of the biggest things in schools today is the vaping element.
Oh yeah.
Right. So like it's just like technology make things easier and more leisurely and easier to get accomplished. Back in the day, if somebody wanted to smoke a cigarette at Bishop Hoban, some did it in the bathroom, but it stunk. And most of them were like, hey, can you hold the door for me or let me back in 10 minutes? Cause I'm going to have I'm going to have a cigarette outside out the back door so it doesn't smell. Now these kids can just go into the bathroom, do it. They do this thing now, which I think is going to be very harmful that you'll see in the future. It's called zeroing. So they'll take a hit of the vape and they'll hold it in for so long that nothing comes out. literally no smoke, no nothing, because it's like it's an oil, right? So it can attach to the capillaries. I can get into the science and I won't because I've read articles on
Holy
it. But
shit.
but they do this thing called zeroing to avoid whatever. Now some blow it, in different places or whatever. Like back in the day with the spoofs, you used to blow it into the running bath water and all that crap, right? But like, so that's a dangerous element, and it causes a lot of issues because kids can get away with it more prevalently. So at the previous school district, with a lot of support from that district, just in that safety role, we were able to get vape detectors in the bathrooms to start. It was a 3-year plan with
Vape
grant
detectors.
money. So there's these things, and they could be as simple as $100 air quality sensor to these halo systems that they're $10,000 per bathroom, and you could literally, the bathroom door will close when it senses it and lock the kids in there.
Wow.
Like crazy stuff. And I don't think it needs to go that far, but
Yeah.
what would happen is it would set off an alarm. We would have a camera outside the bathroom. So you'd be able to see the kid go in.
Now, did the kids know this?
No, they didn't know it at the time.
Yeah, they didn't figure it out yet?
Well, I want to say a story about that with this. Like, so kid will go in the bathroom. We could see a monitor of obviously them going in. There's these different measurements in parts per million and stuff with the air quality that would spike. It'd go from 0 to like 300. Then you knew something was going on. And you had to tinker with that level because sometimes other things would set it off, some perfumes, things of that nature that you kind of had to understand what level was what.
Sure.
So when they would set it off and it would go on, there would be this bar that would be green and then it would spike to red. So I remember this girl moved in from like New York or something, right? All the way out in Berks County, right? So I bring her in and I'm like, hey, you see that screen up there? I'm like, I want to watch that. I go, okay, there you go. You go walking in. And I'm like, now watch the air quality. It's at 0. And I'm like, okay, now it's at 300. Now it's up red. And now here you come walking out. I'm like, we call that triangulation. And that's one of those safety terms, right? And I remember, and I won't curse, but she was like, you guys are effing nuts. And I was like, well, it's for your best safety, dear. Like, this could be really harmful for you. I can't control your life outside of here. But while you're here, my responsibility is to provide you 2 things, safety and opportunity. And I said, this is not safe for you to do here, right? And then we'd have an authentic conversation depending on our level of protocol. And if we wanted to search or whatever, sometimes you let kids learn talking to parents, depending on what it was. Obviously, if it was marijuana, that's a different conversation just for the laws of the state, right? It has to be more progressive and maybe more, disciplinary. But like that was the first phase. And then once we collected data on how much the vaping was either subsiding or we were limiting it, kids now got creative and started to do it in other areas. So then we used that same company and we got better cameras throughout the whole entire facility. Then the 3rd year, we got door sensors because they would go outside. So it is a little bit big.
This is crazy.
That's what I mean. It is a little bit big brothery.
Yeah, because you're always chasing. You're always chasing like what?
Correct. But positive from negative in the situation. There was a former employee, probably kind of like coming around a little bit, and it was interacting with former staff in a negative way. So what happened is you're able to upload the person's picture in the door sensor security because it was all the same system. And all of a sudden I'd get an alert that this guy was outside the elementary school because the camera picked up his face even with the hat on.
Wow.
So now we were able to protect the elementary school, tell them to go on lockdown, you know what I mean? And like these type of things are just extra measures that can kind of help let the public know in a time of big uncertainty around schools. We could keep your kids as safe as possibly can, or at least we're doing every due diligent thing we can to keep your kids safe. So for me, a lot of the biggest issues that I've come across is vaping. I think social media, even as much as violence as it shows, like we have fights. There's always going to be fist fights with kids and things, but like, I don't know unless you're in certain areas. Is there a lot of like weapon use? Is there a lot of things like that? And there are, and different measures have to be taken there. But vaping, I would think, would be the most.
Is that like the number one?
Yeah, because like kids now flush them. And then they burst toilets. Like I think there was a school down in I think there was a middle school down in the Lehigh Valley recently. And this isn't I'm not knocking any institution, but like you read about it in the paper.
Sure.
And they had a sewage backup. And like we've had, you read these things and it's kids flushing these thicker vape devices down the toilet so they don't get caught, causing a backup. And then, stuff happens and then boom, you know what I mean? So like, wow. I think vaping is probably just as cigarette use in our day, just as all that stuff was. Like things don't change, they just enhance or
they're just a little different.
They're just a little different. And you kind of have to know how to correct those issues and put in the proper things that might, make them get more solvable, or at least create conversations with the kids that you're aware. You're looking out for their best interests, and then you tell the parents so that they know that that's what you're doing. And it's all on this positive level. I have to provide safety and opportunity. As an administrator in a school building, those are the two main goals that I have. How could I keep kids safe? And how could I give kids an opportunity? I just had a recent kid talk with me and my principal about a tutoring center. She wants to get a tutoring center to help kids. How could we provide an opportunity for that kid to feel successful in the speech they wrote about it for the Rotary contest, right? But also make them feel fulfilled that they're trying to do something good for their community. So, the safety thing, I would say vaping is probably the number one thing. And like I said, they're just like back in the day and back in the 70s when it was, smoking joints and going to school and it was free living and all this stuff. And you have those cyclical things. But today it may be more harmful than it was back then in some aspects, like I said, with that zeroing, because if you tried to zero a parliament or a camel, you were going to have a problem. You know what I mean? So it would have been a major issue. Yeah. Whereas now the kids don't see it, and we don't know what that causes to the kids' lungs. 20 to 25 years from now, we're going to know. Yeah. But what could I do now to help? And then it opens up, the last thing I'll say is it opens up a bigger conversation. Why are you doing it? What's going on that you feel you need to do it? Do you just like how it feels? Is something going on at home? Do you have are you stressed? Is it a grade? Is it just I wanted to try it and now I'm addicted to it because I like the oral fixation? What is it? And then it allows us a pathway to go in a therapeutic way to kind of help get the kid, something that they need, an opportunity to get better.
Yeah,
right?
Something that they're missing, right? So it kind of sort of brings me and makes me think, obviously we just sort of touched on it, but the mental health aspect, I think, just not just in schools, but I think just in general, right? In the world, I think mental health, obviously it's become a hot topic of conversation in any setting. Doesn't matter if it's schools, any other type of business, whatever it is. But obviously I'm sure in schools it's a hot topic more now than ever. And I'm curious what you're seeing there.
Sure. I could surmise what I think is the cause. There's a litany of causes that do it. The issue is connection, in my opinion. And if people are listening to this whole episode, just rewind it a little bit and go back to that community aspect that I talked about. There needs to be connection. Kids walking around staring on a phone, yeah, they're connected. They play sports and they talk in school and whatever. But some of the issues that I've dealt with in all schools, every school, Snapchat. We used to say it when Facebook started to be outside the college aspect, keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
People will say anything they can behind the safety of a screen because we're not in person. Yeah. When you and I grew up, if we said something on the playground at St. Al's, be ready to get put to task.
Yeah.
Right? And then some of those kids still have that juice, and they'll go up to the kid in school and they'll say, hey, this is what you said to me on Snapchat last night. Let's go.
Yeah, right.
And then 9 times out of 10, maybe 9.9 times out of 10, the writer of that,
he's like, oh,
they back, they back away. And some of them, they go to task, right? But that lack of connection and ability to kind of not know how to regulate your emotion because you've been allowed to purge it in a negative fashion so often, that becomes addictive. And then you're purging this negative emotion over and over and over again, and then it makes you feel better. So then that's the thing you think you need to do. And then when you finally come up with a problem, you don't know how to regulate that. And then therein lies a big, deep embedded mental illness problem. And then if we want to talk about parents and society, think about that old school aspect that I talked about. We wanted to learn a different way, right? Those parents didn't get an opportunity. So maybe not in the forefront, but in the subconscious, there's a feeling of resentment, anger, frustration that they don't even know that they have. And maybe they weren't able to do that. And now you hear this phrase now, generational trauma. It's a real thing. You pass it on to your kids because you didn't have an authentic way to work on it yourself. So it's your job now as a parent to break that, to curb yourself. And as an administrator, It's my job to try to help the student or even the teacher or the parent in some cases break that and understand that there's somebody in the school that cares about your student in a way that, again, I always repeat, safety and opportunity, right? So the mental health piece, like I have a great team of counselors where I'm currently at. The two women that I work with, I can't thank enough about how good they are about this aspect. The stuff that they report back to me, if it needs to get to my level or just to update me, right? We have these child study meetings like once every week about, what's going on. You hear these things and you hear about what's going on at home and you're like, oh my gosh. And I just remember being a teacher like, oh, Johnny or so-and-so or whatever is so bad, so bad. And then if the parent came to parent-teacher conferences, nothing against the parent, but you went, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it now. And I get why this student acts this way. And now I need to retool in order to meet that kid where they're at and try to help them. But the counseling aspect, I remember when I was at Hoban, man, my counselor was just like, where do you want to go to school? Okay, this is how you apply.
Yeah.
This is what you do. And maybe I needed somebody to talk to.
And I feel like we barely even had that though, too.
Correct.
Like that was if we got that, you were lucky.
Now it's I need to come talk to you because my mom said this to me last night and I don't know how to deal with it. Or my dad walked out, or my mom walked out, or I got hit, or there was an argument and I got thrown out of my house. Like there's like high level stuff that now the good thing about the generation today is they are at least more willing to reach out about it.
They are.
I don't know. I don't know what that's down to. I don't know if that's like, but like,
I'm surprised by that in a good way.
So am I. Like, I am actually really surprised by it. But they have no problem coming and talking about it.
Wow.
Like, so it's.
I would have thought the opposite.
So would I, and I really, really would have thought the opposite. But I always said this before COVID, people's problems were shot out of a .22. It was small. It was sleek. It could kill. But it hurt most of the time, but it wasn't huge. Now, people's problems are shot out of a shotgun with a buckshot 9. And it is scattered, the holes are big, and you see the cracks in the armor. So it's... I think people in that period of time really lost their connectivity, and we need to get that back to let them know. I mean, just think about it, man. If you and I were able to do virtual learning as a 7th grader, when it's your formative years, puberty, pick anything that happens as a 7th grader, right?
Yeah.
If you and I were able to just click a button and then walk away, hit a vape, back in our day, I'll say smoke a parliament because I smoke. Sorry, mom and dad, they know this, but I smoked parliaments for like 6 to 7 years.
I had a feeling that's what it was because you dropped that before.
Right,
and I was
right.
He definitely was smoking those.
Yeah. So like that's the thing is like, imagine being able to do that, and imagine being able to do that for 2 years,
and really probably never get caught,
never anything because you can blow it out your window.
Yep.
Just think of anything,
You
and
can
with the
pretty much do
vapes,
anything.
like I said, and then all of a sudden now you're getting put back in school. We have kids where like teachers will be shocked because a kid would just get up and walk out of class. And like, I was like, right after COVID, I'm like, you have to remember, like they did this that was their bedroom.
That's what they were used to.
They were able to get up and go to the bathroom whenever they wanted. They didn't have to ask permission.
No one stopped them. It's just like, this is what they,
And I hate the phrase, the new normal. I hate it. I can't stand it. That's one personal thing that I just cannot stand. But again, you have to work within the system. And the new normal was educating kids on how, like we need to know where you're going. We need to keep you safe. We need to make sure that you're not going somewhere or something. We know where you are. What if there's a fire emergency? What if there's a safety emergency? What if somebody comes in the building and we need to lock it down? We need to know where you are so we could keep you safe, right? And like the kids now, so that was 5 years ago, right? So I would say the 7th graders are now seniors. Okay. But even those seniors, they still had some formative years in early elementary school where they were still a part of the system. So now we're starting to see these kids coming.
So this is, I don't know. I mean, it clicked, but it didn't. But it just kind of, I was like a few seconds delayed.
I always get to where I'm going. It just takes a minute. Yeah.
So, but no, but I mean, like how you said, like the 2020 kids are now graduating high school. Like the kids that were
in 7th grade back then, they're now seniors.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's wild.
So like even I would say the limit of where you're still going to see the cannon fodder, which is collateral damage, right? Where you're still going to see the cannon fodder probably goes back into early elementary school still. So now those early elementary school kids, they're now in 7th and 8th grade. And even my one son, the one who has epilepsy, he was born in May of 2019 on Mother's Day. His kindergarten, you know what I mean? He's in kindergarten now. But like, there were a bunch of COVID babies that were coming into the daycares at that time that we had them in. That, like, they were home. If they were alone, like in terms of like no brothers and sisters, it was even more dysregulation. Mm-hmm. So like you could just see even in my son's class in kindergarten, there's still a little left over from that. So like, I think those kids have to still come through the system. I think it's going to take another 3 to 5, in my opinion, where you're going to start to see school be more traditional.
Kind of sort of get back to at least a little bit of what?
Dealing with people face to face.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that people don't deal with face to face. And if there's anything that a lot of people from NEPA are going to know about me, I'm always face to face.
Yeah.
So like, to your point, which I'm very grateful for all your compliments, is that like, maybe I am the right person for the job. Because I have no problem.
Oh, you definitely are.
I have no problem with it. I hate using the word confrontation, but I have no problem meeting a kid and having an authentic conversation face to face.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do.
Well,
I mean, like, that you're doing your job.
You have to.
And no one should be mad at you for that.
Well, that's the thing, is my counselors and I talk about this with attendance, because again, there's another issue that's been a problem, is even the processes with attendance. And this is nothing against parents, nothing against whatever. You didn't have to write an excuse note for 2 years. It was an email.
Oh my God,
or it was,
really?
Well, you did.
Yeah,
you did, but it was
more
different.
a lot more loose.
It was looser. It was like, okay, email, or dude, think about this. You could log on, count your attendance,
and
turn off your screen, or
and
do
not
whatever.
Actually be present.
And how are teachers able to, at that time, adapt to all that stuff going on?
Yeah.
I was grateful because, when I was at Wilkes-Barre, I took a sabbatical for about a year for some personal things going on, but I still wanted to make money and do whatever. I worked at Keystone National High School out of Bloomsburg, which I think it's just called Keystone School now or something. But I taught online for a year.
Oh, yeah, it's the online one. Yeah.
I taught online for a year. I had, the array of kids I had were crazy. Kids who couldn't be in schools to like Chinese kids, Asian kids from different continents just trying to take calculus earlier and finish.
Wow.
But even kids who were famous, parents who were famous who couldn't have their kids in traditional schools and would like, hey, they need to take this Algebra 1 class. And they'd pop up in my queue. And like, yeah, some of them.
I had no idea.
I did online learning in 2012 and 2013. And dude, one of the first jobs when I got back into the Lehigh Valley was one of the places that accepted me was Pottsgrove School District. I was on a long-term job there for, a teacher who was pregnant. I was going to make $100 a day. It was 50 minutes each way from my house in the Lehigh Valley. So I was going to do, 2-hour commute to make $100 a day because I was just desperate to get back into a school district and show what I could do. Mm-hmm. Literally started that job May 1st of 2020. So 2 weeks until flatten the curve.
Yeah.
I was teaching, and then boom, online. And they were like, Bill, can you do online learning? And I said, absolutely. I said, and that, again, the timing, right? So then for a half a year, I was able to talk about what I was able to train teachers on, what I was able to help other people on doing that job because I had already had a little bit of a toe dip.
Yeah, so you were already aligned to be able to
Correct.
to be able to do that.
And that's the blessing. Like, I don't know what that's down to other than that ethereal meaning that you're destined to do something, right?
Yeah, just like you're put into positions at certain times in your life, good or bad, right? Whether it's a bad experience, a good experience. I think it's like all meant to be, because I think you may not know in the moment, similar to what you said, you may not know like that year, that week, that month, that year, you may not even know for a few years. There might be like 5 years down the road or more. And then you'd be like, then another opportunity comes your way and everybody looks at you as like, hey, I think this might be the guy to be able to solve it because he did the thing 7 years ago or whatever. You know what I mean? It's oh my God, the timing.
Correct, man. And like, think about that Google Suite, Google Classroom aspect that I talk about.
Yeah.
It's a way where you can still keep foundational center of what you know, how you were taught, and what you're comfortable with, but then how to expand on without really needing to do too much work. I mean, it is work. Like, back in the day when I was teaching, I was doing stuff in the evenings beyond contractual hours. Like, if you really want to make a difference, that's what you have to do in any profession, right? And people get, as we said, complacent with that. But like, I've been really gifted opportunities for a reason. I don't know why, but I had to take the steps forward to do it, right? To be able to do that sort of thing.
I think it's just because you're doing the thing.
Yeah.
You're actually doing the thing. You're
Right.
not just out there talking about it and saying like, oh, this is what I think people should do. Like you're doing the thing, man, and people recognize it.
Right.
I mean, like, and again, like I recognize it. Again, I know you and I actually have known each other probably forever, but we did, but we didn't, right? Like we never even had a conversation.
Well,
Okay,
it's the NEPA. It's the NEPA thing. Like I know this kid because I played basketball against him
Yep.
at Regis Academy or something else like
Right.
this, right? And I know that person. If we saw each other,
Yep.
we probably would reconnect, right?
Yeah.
But like to your point,
Yeah, it's
never
just-
had the conversation.
Exactly. And like I said, like I think to kind of answer like sort of what you're saying is like why these things have aligned.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because like again you're doing the thing, and when I mean doing the thing, it's like you're actually I use the word GSD, get shit done, because like that's literally what you're doing, and
Right.
I could see that from afar.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like even though we've only been connected on social media for I honestly don't even know how long.
Right.
But in that amount of time, like I could see, like I could see what's enough that's going on. I'm like, hey, like this guy's actually getting some shit done. I want to have this guy on my show.
If you, and
here we are.
and I know, and I'm forever grateful for this more than you realize at the timing of it. And that's the thing is I realized is if you don't like a system, many people protest the system. They want to dismantle the system, like we were talking about with Department of Ed and all these things. And it's like, I've never had that attitude. My attitude was, I want to join the system, and I want to, lack of better phrasing, blow it up from the inside. But that's not what I mean. It's how can I use the system for
use
good?
what's already there.
Use what's already there as a foundational step, and then enhance
adapt,
it.
evolve.
Adapt and evolve, and adapt and evolve that system.
Yeah.
And showcase that there maybe is something to believe in. Right? Because I think a lot of people have lost faith, and I don't mean religiously in just that context.
Yeah.
I mean in institutionally,
Yep.
organizationally, personally. People need to get that faith and that belief back. And, I'm hoping that this journey will allow me opportunities to continue to do that for a wider array of audience. That's why I wanted to come on here. you know?
Yeah. How's your? I mean, not changing subject here, but like, hey, you mentioned your son a couple times and his epilepsy. How's he doing?
So he's doing much better to the fact of, so people don't realize he has an epilepsy called SCN8A. Now, again, I've been gifted with the best of the worst, right? And what I mean by that is if you went to that foundation on Facebook, you're going to see kids who have feeding tubes. They can't walk. They can't talk. And I can't remember if it's the loss or the gain of function, which was ironic because this was all happening during COVID about gain of function research. And I was learning about gain of function and loss of function for this genetic condition. So it was mind melting. But just yesterday, I was able to get home, get my daughter off the bus, which was great. And my wife is like upset, but I could tell they were happy tears. And she was like, Bill, the BCBA just left. Now, a BCBA is a behavior specialist who works with like an agency that does TSS work. So they help kids outside of school, right? So, literally 4 years ago, my son, because of this epilepsy, has a speech delay. Now, as you guys can tell, I talk. My son can talk. He's very highly intelligent, but he didn't have the words because of this speech delay. Whatever happened with the seizures severed that neurological pathway that he has to rebuild that neurological connection. All right. So just yesterday we were looking charts in 2021, aggressive incidents per month, 190, right? Elopement, which means he'd run away from people, 180 per month. Dude, as of February of 2025, we're at 0.28 a month, 0.4 a month.
Wow.
So a credit to that organization, first of all, for doing what they did, but also a credit to my wife medically and myself for really providing all the aspects. Like I got him early intervention from the CLIU down in Lehigh County to like say, hey, we need to set a precedent of getting kids to come in or getting teachers to come in to our house because my son was shaken out of daycare by one of the employees there because he didn't put a toy back the right way. So we had to remove him from that place because of that, and he couldn't express himself. Thankfully, that agency's TSS worker was there and was able to report it to CYS. So, there's been a long path with this, but he's now talking. I've had a younger son, because I've named both of my sons after my grandfathers. William, the fourth, we call him Liam, the last four letters of William, and Otto. So, like, Otto's now talking, coming up on 2 years old. So Liam's like, oh, I got to get motivated about this. Otto's saying words, I'm going to start saying even more. So it's been this incredible journey where literally, and my math brain will say this, August 24th of 2020, right in COVID, right? You know, it was one of the dip points, but had his first seizure right at the first day of our staycation at home. It happened on the first day both my wife were off. We were looking forward to going out in the pool and hanging out and doing things. And he has this seizure. And I'm going up to get my daughter, and, you know, she's like, Bill, I think Liam's having a seizure. And then I didn't realize how divine intervention and how lucky I was to have my wife, but the EMTs are in the room, and she's like, he was seizing for this long. He went post-ictal for this long. And I'm like looking at her going, you were timing this as you were watching our son do this, but she knew the medical aspect. And so it's just been this journey of getting to CHOP. Thankfully, my cousin knew a doctor who knew whatever, because down there, they weren't going to see him till November of that year.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, no. Like, so my cousin helped me out very much so. Who's best man at my wedding. And, you know, we got to see a doctor, and then we got in the system. So then we were able to do this. The worst of it was the summer of 21, when I just started that director of instruction job. He had about 18 seizures in 24 hours, to the point of where he would wake up, have one, and then go through that post-ictal phase. And then, you know, and they were grand mal. Like, some people have like absent seizures and stuff. These were the full-on thing that you would think of, that they're shaking.
Yeah, like
they
the
can't
stereotypical,
control.
like what, if you've never seen it, what you would probably think it would look like.
Correct, 100%. To the point of where I'm on 76 in my wife's Honda. I have my four-ways on. I am Philadelphia as Philadelphia can be, flying through there like, get out of here, like going crazy to get there. We pulled into the basement of CHOP, pulled him out of the seat. He woke up. We had to lay him in the trunk to have a seizure, and they knew we were coming. And I'll give the credit in the world to CHOP, the utmost credit in the world, that they had 50 people running out. Literally 50 people out of the ER, running out, grabbing him, getting to the bed. Wonderful woman in neurology. And I remember I was talking to her so much, and I said, listen, I know you know what you're talking about. And I mean, nothing against what I'm about to ask you, but I know as much about this disease as you do, don't I? Without the nuance. And she goes, yeah, pretty much. You know, because there's only, at the time in 2021, there was only 450 people in the world with that type of epilepsy.
That's 450.
That's it. And now it's up to 750.
Wow.
So you got to think, my son is 750 out of 8 to 9 billion right now.
That's like insane.
It's incredibly insane. And that's how incredibly rare it is. And like I said, we were blessed because there's these 4 domains in where this genetic condition happened in his brain. It's a sodium channel issue. So it's either a lack of sodium or too much sodium, right? And in these channels, it's supposed to be cylindrical. Well, his is either concave or convex, gain or loss. I can't remember at this point, right? Because he's been doing so well. And, you know, we looked at the dot, because they have all these dots that you don't have information. You don't know these people because of HIPAA, like you have no idea. But we looked at the dot, and the dot was really, really small in the domain. And they were like, that's your son. And I know math, I know charts. I said, so that small dot means he's the only one that has it in that area. And they were like, yep. And I was like, okay. And my wife and I never really wanted to compare, because we don't want to know what things look like. We want to create our own destiny for this kid. And, you know, when we went back recently there, the dot got a little bigger. So there's at least one other person that has it. Now, this person could be in India, Canada. We have no idea. It's 750 in the world. Like, we don't know. But we have seen other people that look like our son that are older, where, you know, my son is muscular. Like, it's either you don't have muscle and you can't walk, or you are jacked. And my son has abs. My son is cut. He runs. We're going to try to get him into some Special Olympic track events.
How old is he now?
He's going to be 6 in May.
Yeah.
So we're going to start to enter into that world to get him, you know, feeling accomplished even more and doing things. But dude, like, he knows math. He's in kindergarten. Like, math tests, 9 out of 10. Like, you know what I mean? He builds these connects figures, these animals. He'll look and see how to make animal with connects, and he'll come out and he'll be like, and showing it. And we're like, so we know that's what we were worried about.
Okay. You were worried that was
cognitive.
lost.
Yep. We were worried about the cognitive loss. There is no cognitive loss. And it's people underestimate him because he can't talk like a 5-year-old. And it sounds a little different than what you and I would.
What you would expect.
Correct. But he's there. And I'll be honest, another thing, you know, and I got to thank my one buddy I went to high school with. Don't really talk to him too much anymore, but I remember when we were looking at houses, he was an athletic trainer down in the Lehigh Valley at the time. He now lives in Philly. And he took us around to these school districts. We got to see where houses look like, what they look like. And he's like, my brother-in-law went here. And he's a civil engineer now over in, Europe or something, right, with his sister. So, we went there, man. And this school district, bro, it is the woman that is there that is helping our son. It's just been incredible. So again, we've been delivered to a place, just being good people and giving back. It was given back to us, right? Etherically. You can plan for something. You don't know if it'll work out. So overall, man, he's been doing way better, to the height of where my wife was crying so many happy tears yesterday. He's going to graduate from the program at the end of May.
Wow.
We'll do extended school year, which is an IEP thing that we can do just so he's not in shock going back into first grade. You know what I mean? And because he needs that. But our goal is to get him into a place, what I call itinerant learning in the school district. And itinerant learning is you have an IEP, you have a difficulty learning for whatever reason. It could be medical. It could be just general specific disability. It could just be learning impairment. You just need a little help to kind of, kickstart everything. And so itinerant kids, they get to the point where if they need help taking a test, they can go to a separate room. And they could take the test with an individual who could work more one-on-one with them and just understanding
the way that they need to process.
The way that they need to process. So usually we need a kid in a regular ed classroom probably around 80 to 85% of the time in order to get to that itinerant level. Well, my son started kindergarten at probably 25% in the regular ed classroom. He's now at 60.
Wow.
So we could really see, because I told the principal there, who's an amazing woman, I said, we want him itinerant by intermediate school or middle school if we can, right? And she's like, I want that too. So it's just been a great thing to witness. And that's another thing, is if anybody ever is going through any things, to be an advocate in hospitals, to be an advocate for yourself, and maybe just to get some background, I'm always willing to help out anybody with that, because my wife and I have been through it, and it's not been as worse as some other people have gone through. Believe me. Some people have lost children. Like I said, some people with the same genetic condition, they're pushing their kid around.
Yeah.
And it's heavy stuff, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, along those lines, man, obviously, thankfully you guys were able to figure out what you're able to figure out. And, but I'm sure, it's weighed, not to get real, not that's negative, but I'm sure it's weighed on you guys as a family. I mean, I'm sure it's affected everybody. And that's tough, man. And credit to you and your wife. I mean, for handling it the way you handle it. Because, not that you would be a bad parent if you went the other way, but sometimes something like that could probably just, again, I don't know, because it's, knock on wood, it's never happened to me. But if something, both of you could have just maybe not ignored it intentionally, but you could have just been the people who just didn't advocate, and then it just got worse. And, who knows, where it could have gone in the other direction.
And that's what I mean, man.
Because I'm sure it weighs on you a lot.
Well, here's the thing. So there's this special monitor out there. It's called the SAMI monitor, right? And it looks like it's a camera, but it has all those bubbles around it. So it's motion. It's the highest quality you can get for this, and it detects movement. And I basically set it up in his room. I gave him his own dedicated Wi-Fi router to it, so I knew it wouldn't lose internet. It's Etherneted, plugged in, the whole 9 yards. And you can tell by the redness. We watched an example of it, and if a kid is moving and it moves for a certain amount of time, just the same way, it cloaks it in red, and then an alarm will go off.
Okay.
So sometimes, now that my daughter and my son, they share a bed sometimes because they like to sleep together, they're close in age, they're friends, little sleepovers every night, it'll go off because she moves. So literally you go to bed every night and you're because a lot of them happen when he woke up.
Okay.
So you literally go to bed every night and you're is tonight,
what's gonna happen?
And you're blessing yourself, you're doing what as comfort, right? And asking the higher power to kind of help out. And so it's something that we know we'll live with forever. And we now kind of know what that means for people that have said that before. You can't let it overtake you. It's those negative thoughts, right?
Yeah. How do you not let that happen? Because that's so easy to happen.
It's extremely easy to happen. And
that's kind of what I was getting at before.
Yeah, I think the success that I've had personally and seeing things blossom for me and happen with good timing and the belief. You really have to believe, man. Sometimes you just have to, you can't control. Humans want control. Control brings comfort and safety in knowing what to expect. You have to sometimes just put it out there into the universe and say, I know I don't have control, but I'm willing to give and give back to this earth in some way so that you can protect my son. And that has to bring you the comfort. And if it doesn't, I don't know what other explanation I could really give to help you get there. But even that timing with my wife, like King's College freshman year, I remember I had theater in the arts with Dr. McClinton Temple, right? And I'll say her name because she was a great professor. I knew who my wife was. My wife didn't know who I was. And then the next thing you know, we don't really date each other until after we're out of school several years, like 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And so like, things happen for a reason.
For sure.
And even though being with her, had this happen with our kid, what we were able to do for him, because I heard a story from one of the people I worked with at the charter school where, to your point, 2 parents had the kid who had an epilepsy, not the same type, but they had it. He'd have 100 a day. And they were just still... They wouldn't really take him to the hospital. They just kind of went around. They were doing drugs. They were doing whatever. And that's how they coped. And I don't know if it's nature or nurture. I don't know if it's a person's personality or the fear of taking the step forward or putting in the work. But my wife and I have the same mentality where you have to take the step forward for something that's bigger than you because we believe we're here for something bigger than us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, man.
You have to.
You have to. You really do. And I think the other thing too, and what I've noticed, and I think I'm kind of the same way. I'm the same way with a lot of things. Is and it kind of goes with your education background, but you've educated, and obviously your wife too, but you've educated yourself. And in situations like this, the way I operate is like I dive headfirst into it, and I'll learn everything about it that I possibly can, because then that brings me comfort in knowing it's not that it's a control thing, but it's enough that like I'm not saying go Google and but you have to kind of learn, right?
Well,
but
that you do.
But
peer reviewed.
Yes.
That's better.
Yes, yeah. But like really learning like real information, not just what people are saying on Reddit type thing, right?
Well, and the anecdotal thing from parents talking in the thing, you have to know that if you read a parent's comment, in that SCN 8A, you take it for what it's worth because maybe their situation is worse and or better than yours. Mm-hmm. So you have to find the line in between after doing that back. And that's why I said that to that doctor, because like I wasn't being rude to her. I was like, I really want to show you verbally what I've done to learn about this and how it helps. And it kind of goes back to that theme of what we're saying this whole time is like, taking the step forward, educating yourself, learning beyond the norm, diving in, taking the step forward when the anxiety is bad. Yeah.
Especially in a health and medical situation, because that's like, and again, like, I mean, I'll even give you an example. My mom, she's like one of my biggest fans of the show. She's probably watching. Shout out to my mom. Love you. My mom has a stage 4 cancer. And when she got diagnosed like a year and a half or so ago, when we went to Sloan in Manhattan in New York City, and prior to going there, obviously she had been to, she was diagnosed, and, we'd seen some doctors around here locally, and we were going to get a second opinion, like the first second opinion, right? We're going to get a second opinion. And, at this point I had already been to like several of my mom's appointments. And again, same thing, like I dove in, and every time I was at those appointments, I, here locally, well, all of them ever since then, but I would ask a lot of questions, and again, I don't know anything in the medical world. Like prior to this, I would have been like, now again, this is more specific to like my mom's situation than, I'm not talking about just all other medical stuff, but like prior to this, I know nothing. Like I knew like nothing, like medical terms, like whatever, right? So anyway, long story short is, I was helping set up all of her appointments and stuff with Sloan. And when I was first talking to them on the phone, just going over all of her, some of the notes from previous doctors, which obviously they can just request and get all the records. But this is before they had all the records, and I'm just verbally giving all the information of like what the other doctors have said and what their plan was, etc. And I'm explaining it, and then all of a sudden, the lady on the phone, she was like maybe like a nurse or something. I forget exactly. But she goes, do you work in the medical field? And I said, no. And she goes, you don't? I said, no, why? And I think at that point I kind of knew where she was going. She goes, because it sounds like you